Hey, I'm Bear,
And I'm Michael the Wolfman Hart.
and this is Bear Heart. Episode 2.
Woohoo!
We got one in the bag. Going for number 2 here. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good about this one.
Yeah?
I mean, got some decent feedback from episode 1 so far.
Yeah, I think a couple people have given us some good feedback.
I mean, I've had a couple friends like, I haven't heard your voice in forever. Because all I do is text them.
You gotta learn to pick up the phone, man.
No, they need to learn how to pick up a phone. It goes two ways.
It goes two ways. So, I think this week I want to talk about what got us into music. What it was that got you and me playing music to begin with. Before we do that, though, I think we should give our listeners an idea of what we've been up to since the last podcast.
Oh, God.
Yeah, yeah,
So, first, you came up with a little challenge for me.
I did.
Oh, I didn't like it. No, I mean, it's not that I didn't like it. It was a challenge for me.
I just spilled my beer.
I saw that. It was pretty cool.
So I asked you, I asked you to write a song in full. So not just lyrics, but also the guitar part for it.
I couldn't do the guitar part.
You had it mostly down.
For the song itself, okay, I'm still not a fan of the title we picked for the song.
What's the title we picked?
We picked Lonely Drunk.
Lonely Drunk.
I didn't like the title. I mean, I knew the melody I wanted for the guitar part, and I actually had an idea for the guitar part that was going on in my head. And I would hum it, and that's how I wrote all the lyrics.
Right, and then I changed it.
You destroyed what I had in my head, but I love what we came up with.
Yeah, I think it turned out really nice.
Oh, I dug it. We need a recording of that.
I have one somewhere.
We might have to put that together and give everybody an idea of what we
Probably a good idea.
would be.
So that was the Wednesday following episode 1.
Yeah, because I had already had the lyrics put together, and shortly after, I mean, it literally hit me the next day. It was, I've told you about my shower moments, how I come up with lyrics while I'm taking a shower.
I'm glad you clarified what you meant by your shower moments.
No, I mean, everybody has that. Driving to work, you might think of something, and you're like, oh my God, I need to get it down. Mine happened in the shower.
Okay. I mean,
think-
it's as good a spot of hey, the chorus effect from the walls is great.
Oh, and then,
Everybody sounds
You had the
amazing.
gargling sound from the water, like, whoa!
Why are you gargling water when you're singing?
Because I've got to, like, wash my face off, and the water falls in while I'm singing.
That's weird.
I know it's weird.
It's really weird.
But I come up with damn good lyrics.
So then the following Wednesday, we finished. Well, okay, we didn't finish, but we started working on a song that we'd been working on probably a couple years ago. Good Times.
Still,
Always the pessimist.
I'm not. It's not necessarily that I'm a pessimist with it. I want to change something with it. I just don't know what I want to change yet. I know you're happy with it.
Yeah, I'm very happy with it. I think it sounds good how it is. We just need to finish out the lyrics. That's all.
I think it feels like it's missing something. It really does, and that's where I'm at every time that we pull that song out and everything else like that. It's one of those situations.
Well, the nice thing about that is that I finally got you playing rhythm on it.
Yeah.
And we can throw some lead to it, and I think that'll fill that void that you're feeling.
We actually had a lot of work done these past 2 weeks, man.
Yeah.
I mean, we had finished up my song.
Mm-hmm.
There's still a little bit more we can do with it, I think.
There's
We
a
need to get it
couple-
recorded, for sure.
Yes, yeah, we definitely need to get it recorded. There's a couple directions that we could go with, mostly with the bridge, I think.
Mhm.
And then Good Times is kind of the same way. Lyrically, it's basically done, mostly. I mean, we need to finish up a couple things, but musically, there's a bridge missing that needs to be there.
It's got a little something. I don't know. I
don't know.
I
We'll
really
find it.
want to just like scrap it one day, like how we've done with a couple of our songs, and just try something completely random and see what we come up with. And if that doesn't work, then
Breaking my heart. Breaking my heart. I wish I had it right now that I could cue up and play. I love the rhythm guitar in that song.
I think it's the melody with the lyrics that bugs me.
You think it fits? I agree.
You fucking jerk. And so, what else did we work on? We mainly talked about the podcast,
We talked a lot about the podcast.
getting that organized.
Yeah, you were over till 3 o'clock in the fucking morning on Wednesday.
You had good scotch.
That was a rough day at work the next day.
I'm glad I didn't have to. Yeah, I'm glad I didn't have to go to work the next day. You want to know what I did the next day?
Slept in.
I slept in.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah,
want to know what I did after
did
that?
not.
I ordered pizza. And then I played around with some other lyrics that I've been messing with.
That you haven't shown me yet?
Yeah.
I see how it is.
Well,
I remember when you used to send me lyrics and text me with lyrics and be like, "Hey Bear, check this out. What do you think?"
I
How do you
mentioned
think
it.
this sounds?
I mentioned it this past Wednesday when we stayed up till like 3 a.m. that
I was drunk. So
and your
so
memory's
remembering-
terrible.
Yeah,
Yeah,
remembering
you're-
things for me is already hard.
Your memory is terrible as it
Yeah,
is.
throw alcohol on top of that, and it's just out the window.
Well, I had mentioned that night that I've been working on something, and I'm trying to put it all. Okay, so I'm taking your original challenge that you did Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
the Sunday after our first podcast,
Mm-hmm.
because I basically came up with those lyrics. I just couldn't play the guitar part I wanted. I gave you an idea about that guitar part. You helped me finish that song.
Yeah.
At the same time, when you left that Wednesday, because you came over to my house, you left, I stayed up a little bit longer. And I had some lyrics that I'd been working on, probably for maybe a month now.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm trying to put my own guitar part to that. That's the rough part for me.
So you're actually going to complete the challenge, but with a different song.
It's going to take me a little bit longer. And yeah.
I vaguely remember talking about this now.
Well, you you wanted to do it live on the podcast on a later
Oh,
episode.
that's okay. Oh, thank you for reminding me about that. Yes,
Shit.
we are still going to do that, and now we have it recorded. So we're
You
gonna do that.
heard nothing.
All right. As soon as you finish it, we will debut it live on the podcast.
We may debut it live.
Oh, we will.
I'm gonna play it for you first and get it.
Play it for me first on the podcast.
No, not on the podcast. Definitely not on the podcast. There's some areas of it that I'm still having issues with, like transitions from verse to chorus
Okay.
for guitar parts. I can do it when I'm just playing my guitar. Like I can come up with a good. You've heard some of my rhythms, and we use those rhythms a lot. And then even some of those rhythms, I've been able to turn into decent. Do the transition into a chorus. We've done that before.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do it with my own damn song.
That's fair.
And that's the issue right
That's
now. Because vocally on this particular kind of song, it's different. I'm just gonna say that it's like
All right. Well, I look.
it's
forward
nothing
to,
that we play
looking
for.
forward. I'm looking forward to hearing.
But I'm trying to finish up the actual challenge. But you gave me such a short period of time. I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna finish some lyrics for this song, and then you're gonna help me do the guitar parts and everything else.
Okay.
But for this new song, we're gonna call it the Heart Song,
The heart song. All right, we can do that.
or the Wolfman Song. I don't know.
Hey, whatever you want to call it, man.
Whatever I want to call it.
It's your song.
It's my song.
All right. So episode 1, we kind of, sort of, a little bit talked about your past with music, and you mentioned being in a punk band,
Mm-hmm.
and we didn't really get too heavy into that. So my question for you, based on that, is thinking back to, and I know it's a long time, but thinking back to your childhood.
Was that an old man
That
crack?
was an old man joke,
You
yeah.
fucker.
Thinking back to your childhood, what is the first song, the very first song that you can remember listening to and going, oh, I like this. This is good.
Ooh. I
But-
don't even know the name of the song.
Can you sing a little bit of it? I mean,
Oh my God. So I had to have been 4 or 5 years old.
okay.
This is very early 80s, mind you. My dad and I were living in, so my family and I were all living in Edgewood, New Mexico, just outside of Albuquerque, New Mexico. And cassettes were starting to become a thing. So my dad was taking a bunch of his vinyls. And I remember him setting up the stereo for the vinyl and then the stereo for the cassette. And he mixtapes, like in Guardians of the Galaxy
Yep,
kind of thing.
yep.
He was making his own mixtapes that he was doing. And there's this one song, and I cannot remember the name of the artist. It's like Neanderthal Man, this name of the song or something like that.
What?
So the song starts off with this guy talking. He's like, "We're gonna go back, way back," and picture like a little funk sound, like
All right. Got a little wah pedal in there.
yeah, something like that. And it's gonna go back, way back, back into time when there was nothing but Neanderthals,
This is a rap song?
troglodytes,
Troglodytes.
cavemen, cave women. Now take your average caveman at home listening to his stereo, but you have to picture like this whole like a funk sound going on. It's more of a spoken kind of song than anything with just a bunch of instruments. But there's one part of the song he's like, "I gotta find a woman, gotta find a woman, gotta find a woman, gotta find a woman." And I remember singing that like left and right. I remember that part. If you want an actual song that I can recall,
Do you think? Do you think that one had any sort of impact on you as far as music goes?
oh hell no.
no,
That was just a
No,
fun
it's just
song.
a fun song.
That was just like one of the first songs I could ever remember, and that still sticks in my head. And I know I can find it on Spotify. I know I can find it on a couple other places. And every once in a while, I'll look it up just to like remember that moment of like my dad recording all his vinyls. Because I remember looking through those vinyls, and you know, there's that one cover of the Rolling Stones where it's just like the blue jeans, and it had an actual zipper on it. Then there was that cover of the Steppenwolf album that was just like that lion head that had just like a bunch of like collage put together with it. All God, he had so many albums. Then he had like a bunch of Beach Boys vinyls, the Righteous Brothers.
First cassette tape that I ever got.
Mm-hmm.
First cassette tape, Beach Boys' "Endless Summer."
Oh, dude,
Dude,
so
I
good.
played the shit. As a matter of fact, I still have that original cassette tape and case with the sleeve, the cover art sleeve in it, everything.
First cassette I ever purchased myself. Like when I started getting into music for myself, White Zombie.
White song. Okay.
It was
All
that
right.
Devil Music Volume 1, whatever, with that one that had Black Sunshine on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my actual first cassette I ever purchased for myself.
Okay, so what was the
Hmm.
first song that you remember having an impact on you, whether it was emotional or it, I don't know, it just did something for you, right? Like it gave you that spark.
The spark of, like, I want to play music
Not necessarily, just something that,
that had an emotional tie to it, I guess you could say.
yeah.
A little backstory here.
Okay.
My parents separated when I was young. And this is going back almost to that same era, between 5 and 6 years old. I remember driving in the car, going from, because my mom went to Albuquerque and my dad and my brothers stayed in Edgewood. So on the weekends, we'd drive up to Albuquerque, stay with my mom, and then after the weekend was over, go back and hang out with my dad. And it's only like a 45-minute drive or something like that, right? And my dad would put on Heart, go figure, and Bad Animals. That album was consistently playing. And then there was, I can't remember the actual other album. I don't know if it's on Bad Animals, but the song Alone by Heart. That song still, I hear it to this day, and it reminds me of all those moments of when I was a kid. And
I'm trying to think if I know that one. I don't know.
I'm
that
not
I
gonna
do.
hum it. I will not.
Oh, come on, give us a little bit.
It's like, oh, love. Someone look it up. Bear, look it up.
This is why we need a producer.
Yeah, exactly.
We need a producer that can come in with a fucking piece of paper and be like, hey, guys, it's this one.
Exactly.
It's this one.
We'll jot that down for later. But that was one of the first things one of the first songs that really impacted me. Other than that, like all the Beach Boys, Righteous Brothers, a lot of Righteous Brothers. You never close your eyes.
Oh, okay, all right.
But
I didn't
there's
know that. I didn't know that was Righteous Brothers. Actually,
Yeah, that was the Righteous Brothers. So Top Gun moment, Righteous Brothers.
Okay, all right.
But it wasn't that song. There's Cliffs of Dover, I think it's called.
Sounds familiar.
Another Righteous Brothers song that was also had a big impact because my dad listened to it all the time after that separation happened. And I just like all those songs just remind me of those moments.
Okay. I guess to kind of answer my own question for me, Bachman Turner Overdrive,
I've never even heard of that.
Taking Care of Business.
Really?
That's the first
Taking
song.
care of business. Every day we're taking care of business and working overtime.
That's the
Look
one,
out.
man.
Yes,
dude, that's the one. So kind of similar situation. It was actually right before my parents had separated, and I remember my dad had one of those. You remember those old Econoline Ford vans?
Oh my God.
You could put like a table and couch and stuff in the back. Like people were just tricking them out.
Shag carpet and
Yeah,
everything.
yeah.
Okay,
So he had one of
the
those.
shaggin' wagon, baby.
Yeah. He had a brown one, and it had like the pinstripes like down the side of it.
Did he have like an epic graphic on the outside of the van?
No graphic on the outside.
Oh, that I've lost respect already.
But yeah, I remember getting into the van, and I actually remember even asking him after a certain point to play that song. That was our jam song. When we were leaving the house, that was the first song that we listened to.
I mean, for me growing up and everything else like that, it was such a mix because then my dad remarried and I had two stepsisters for a little while there. One was in her early teens, and I remember her listening to a lot of Aerosmith, Guns N' Roses. That's when Guns N' Roses first came out. So Welcome to the Jungle was consistently being played in that house. Jane Child, I Don't Want to Fall in Love. You've heard me sing that one over here.
I don't know if I have.
Mel's friend, I was singing it for her one day when we were just reminiscing like old R&B kind of hits and things like that.
Well, give me a little bit of it.
I can't remember.
How can you? What you said? You sing it all the time.
Don't put me on spotlight, Bear. Stop.
I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Well,
Come on, give me one line.
I don't want to fall in love. No. It cuts just like a knife. Ooh. You make the night feel good. Back me up.
I can't even right now.
Is it because I'm dancing around to it?
It's a little bit of it.
But there was a lot of that playing. And that's also when cable was really coming out. MTV was first starting up. So I remember listening to Nightmare on Elm Street by Fresh Prince. DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince.
Yeah,
I recall listening to that song as a young kid. And then later on, it was like nothing but MC Hammer. Vanilla Ice.
Oh.
Okay, the only reason I got into Vanilla Ice, period, hands down, Ninja Turtles 2, Secret of the Ooze.
All right. Well, and I know you know that rap,
Yes, I do.
so
No.
we have to bust it out on stage one of these days.
We did, remember?
Kind of. You got super nervous about it.
Yeah, no.
And
it really didn't.
all sheepish. And
It didn't fit the moment. It really
know,
did. Not for that song.
twiddling your feet. And, yeah.
No, but
I mean, you gotta go full bore with it one of these nights and just bust it out.
maybe.
Just bust it out.
All right, brother. So we've been talking about like music that maybe our parents listened to and everything else like that. And I already told you the first album I picked up for myself because
yourself, yeah.
because I got into like some friends that liked metal, and that was just kind of where it went. I mean, I still like a little bit of metal. I mean, and I do like White Zombie, and I've seen Rob Zombie live a couple times.
Yeah, I don't know if that's really metal per se.
Yeah, well, I don't know what the genre you want to call it, but
It's
for
hard-
me,
it's hard rock.
Hard rock. So for me, during that time, I was listening to Metallica, Megadeth. I was also listening to Pantera, Morbid Angel,
Okay, that's-
Obituary.
That's metal.
Yeah, then early Tool and things like that. I got out of that phase really quick.
How come?
It's what my friends liked. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay.
It was what my friends liked at the time. I mean,
That's why you got into it, or that's why you got out of it. Like what?
Okay, so what got me into it is started hanging. It was one of my best friends at the time, and his older sister was really into listening to Metallica and Megadeth, and she had just like a bunch of just different kinds of metal albums. Anthrax, she was a big Anthrax fan. Slayer, also another band that she would frequent. So it was more like one of those situations where it's like younger brother looks up to older sister listens to metal. I'm best friend and hanging out over at his house all the time.
Okay. So
And-
it was exposure.
It was
right?
exposure. It was definitely exposure.
That's what you were being exposed to at the time, and you kind of fell into it.
Exactly.
All right. So how did you fall out of it then?
What I would listen to by myself when I wasn't around hanging with him and things like that, it was in the 90s. I mean, come on. I was listening to, by myself, Nirvana, Stone Temple Pilots, Pearl Jam, and a few other bands that were like that around that time. However, the true calling of music that I still appreciate to this day is when I heard Titty Twister by Diesel Boy.
Who the fuck is Diesel Boy?
Diesel Boy is a punk band, and their song is called Titty Twister. The first time I heard that song, and it was on a various artists album. So
Okay.
Fat Music puts out these like Life in the Fat Lane, and they have like all these ridiculous things that go back to like the word fat on all their albums, but it comes with a various amount of art. So it's just not like you're listening to one individual band. And that's where I was fascinated, because this was in the mid 90s. If you wanted a mixtape of a bunch of different bands, you had to make that yourself. And when I found this, it was like, oh my God, I like all these bands. But it was the first time I heard that song. I think I was going through like a Hastings or something like that. And they had the little headphone stations. And they had that album for some reason on one of the headphone stations. So I just was picking up random headphones and I was just hitting play.
Just to see what was on it.
Just check it out, you know?
Okay.
And I heard that and I was like, oh my God, this is an amazing song.
It spoke to you.
And the awesome part of this story is that I pick up the album. I'm like, screw it, I'm going to buy it right now. So I pick up the CD, and they have the little sticker on the front that's like almost $20 for this CD. However, I turn around the back, and on the actual printing for the label and everything else, it says paid no more than $4.99 for this CD. So I walk up to the register and I put it down on the register, and the lady's like, well, that's going to be like $20 or something like that. I was like, do you want to get sued for false advertising? And she goes, excuse me? And I was like, this is printed.
Such a punk little kid.
This is what's printed on the CD itself by the manufacturer and the company that produced this CD. Don't pay more than $4.99 for this CD. So here's a 5-spot, and I'm taking this album and I'm going out the door. I put that into my like Sony Walkman.
yeah, Discman.
Yeah, the Discman, that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So put that in.
Press anti-skip and
Dude, seriously.
walk out of the store.
No effects. It had Tilt on there, No Use for a Name, Propaganda. Wizzo, Diesel Boy, just I love
So
it.
was that kind of your start down the path of
Punk. Seriously, the minute I heard it, it was like, because I listened to a lot of Nirvana, and that has punk aspects to it, if you will. It's grunge.
Right.
But when you listen to some of their earlier music, or even the Incesticide album, feels very punkish in a way, but just sang in the grunge way.
Sure.
But the guitar parts and everything else, a lot of power chords, a lot of really quick rhythms and everything else like that, loved it. The minute I heard that album, I picked up Punk and Drublic by NoFX the next weekend, just listened to that. Oh, punk from there on out.
All right. So I mean, if that started your path, let's flash forward then. How do you go from that to joining a punk band and getting up on stage and singing for a punk band?
Whoa.
What's the story behind that?
So, the same friend that was into metal, had the older sister into metal, that was middle school.
Okay.
I didn't do full middle school. So middle school is what, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade? And then you
Yeah.
go to,
High school's
you
9th
get
through
into-
12th.
Yeah, exactly.
I know it's been a long time.
Shut up. I went to 6th and 7th grade. I skipped 8th. And then I went straight into my freshman year of high school. I tested out of it.
Wait, so you used to be super smart?
I'm still super smart. Super smart. Yeah, I tested out of that, and I also tested out of high school my junior year.
Like graduated, tested out of high school your junior year?
Yeah.
All right.
But what had happened was that we went to the same middle school and everything else, and then I went to my freshman year of high school not knowing anybody. All my friends were still in middle school. They were all in 8th grade. I had skipped that, and I went straight to 9th grade. And during my 9th grade year, I had to try to fit in with some people, so I would sit there and hang out with like a lot of the metal kids, a lot of the grunge kids that still liked Nirvana, that everybody's wearing their Kurt Cobain t-shirts and things like that. And then I found this, I was skating then too. I was skateboarding then too. So, and I found a couple of skater kids that also happened to like punk rock music. And
Were they freshmen also, or they were older?
one was a freshman, the other two were sophomores. And they had all known each other from a different part of town. So, because I came from like a south side of town and they were all from the north, but we all had to go to that one same high school.
And this was in New Mexico?
No, this was in Bradenton, Florida. I had already...
This is before you moved to New Mexico?
Yeah. No, so I lived in New Mexico when I was a kid, and then when I was like 6 years old, I moved to Florida.
Okay.
And that's pretty much, I moved around, I went to like 7 elementary schools.
I've known you for 10 years, and I'm just now finding this out.
Yeah,
I guess I didn't ask the right questions.
most likely. You didn't care enough for me.
All right, so you moved to Florida, freshman year, meet a couple of skater punks.
So yeah, no, I skipped the 8th grade, already living in Florida and things like that. Went to my freshman year, met some really awesome people, and met a couple skater punks. And on the side, 2 of them played bass, which was interesting. They like to play bass together. They switched one of them switched to like a rhythm guitar, and in my high school, we actually had a guitar class. But that wasn't the first instrument I ever played. Middle school, I was doing the viola during my orchestra class.
What exactly is a viola?
It's a little bit bigger than a violin.
That's it?
It's just a little bit bigger, and it sounds deeper than a violin. That's it.
Okay.
But I mean, I used to play the can. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, I used to, orchestra. But that was in 6th and 7th grade.
Okay.
And again, skip the 8th, go to freshman year. So it was like an elective class kind of thing. So took this guitar class, started playing guitar, and then hung out with those skater punks. Travis and Scott were their name. Well, Travis Scott and I don't even know his name. Is Brick?
Brick.
He was a punk. But we all just started hanging out, messing around. We all liked the same kind of band, so we tried to learn a couple of songs together. And yeah, it just took off from there.
What'd you call yourselves?
The Incorrigible Idiots.
So a couple high school kids get together, form a band, the Incorrigible Idiots.
So it was the sophomore bass player, and then my buddy Travis, he played rhythm guitar. They also had me on guitar, but then we had this other guy, can't remember his name. I think that some other dude, it's been so long. I'm sorry. But he was doing drums, and I got up and started shouting stuff into the mic, joking around one day, and they're like, "Oh, we're going to keep that." So I ended up doing lead vocals for that band. Just shouting out obscenities.
So did you write full songs, or was it just
I think
jam thing,
the
or?
longest song I think we wrote was a minute 45 seconds. It's just quick punk, dude. We had probably like 17 songs completely written out that we did and performed over at a couple house parties. Won a little bit of a battle of a band and got to open up for who was playing that night? I can't recall. It's been so long. I want to say it was no, that was that show. So yeah, I got to do like a quick opening set, like 5-song set for NoFX.
You opened for NoFX.
We were the first band, and there was 2 other bands after us, and then there was NoFX for the rest of the night. We couldn't stay for the show because it was a bar, and we had to have our parents there. But they had a kind of a Battle of the Bands challenge thing, and we ended up that it was like a punk version of a Battle of the Bands that they had sent out. It was something weird like that. I can't remember what year that was.
It sounds like fun.
It was.
It sounds like a lot of fun.
For what I remember of it.
All right, so how do you go from that to not playing guitar at all?
Moved.
To not playing music at all?
Moved.
That's it.
Middle of my junior year.
Where'd you move to?
Back to Albuquerque.
And you gave it up?
My dad was having a hard time finding work in Florida for a little while there. At one point he was working 3 jobs. He was doing recycling tires. You know, he was working in a tire shop where they recycled tires. Okay. That was like one job. He had his main job, which was like his concrete engineering, his career, and then he would do the other job on the side, and then he had like one other like weekend job of some sort. We grew up kind of poor, so it was rough. And then in the middle of my junior year, went to go because my mom was still living in Albuquerque. Flew out there to visit her. Noticed how much Albuquerque was expanding during that time, and told my dad about it. And decided to move. Yeah, I was the one who actually instigated the move, so my dad could get more stable work, and we can be around my mom and my other brother at the time. So, and when you're a new kid going into a predominantly Hispanic high school, which was a very troublesome high school that I went to.
It's probably a little rough.
Yeah, I got jumped my first few days of school. So
jump. You got the shit
no, I got stabbed once.
Damn, man.
It's just what happens, dude. So it was a situation where I didn't have people who had the same kind of interest. I didn't even meet another person who knew half the bands that I would talk about until I started working at Home Base, which is like it was a West Coast version of like a Home Depot.
Okay.
They never went past
Except they have Home Depot on the West Coast.
It was Home Base was exclusive to the West Coast mainly. They never went past I think El Paso. So But Home Depot was everywhere. I understand that. Don't need a.
Yeah. So
But-
that wouldn't be the West Coast. I'm gonna call you out on it.
Shut up. I'm gonna kick you in the nards right now. You know what I mean, though.
So it was exclusive to that area.
Yeah,
Got
but
it.
met one of my best friends, Steve.
This is after high school then.
This is clearly after graduation and everything else like that. Probably like my second year into college. I was like 19, 20 or something like that. And that's when I met Steve, who knew all the ska bands I knew of. And listened to a lot of the same. I mean, we went to Vans Warped Tour together. We went to all kinds of shows together, but I still wasn't playing music then. It was just good to have another friend. I still
Yeah.
had my electric guitar.
But you never picked it up at any point since then, and decided that you wanted to start playing music again. I mean, you have a guitar. You had experience being on stage. You were in a band. I mean, how do you walk away from something like that? Is I guess my question.
I couldn't find the same individuals. Most of the people that I had already started talking to about music during that time were already in established bands. And that is such a small community
Yeah.
of punk and ska.
Especially at that point for punk. I mean,
Yeah.
that was at that point there was a waning period for punk, right?
So it was just something I played on the side every once in a while. I'd pick up my electric, I would do a couple things, and that'd be it, dude.
So somewhere in between there, then you started doing slam poetry, right?
Mm-hmm.
What, in a sense, it's kind of musical, right? There's an ebb and flow to slam poetry, in the way that you read, the way that you emphasize certain words, and
When I was
let the-
doing music, I was mainly a lyricist.
Okay.
And writing poetry was always something I did on the side. Anyways, I didn't admit it, though. You know?
you hit it, yeah.
It was just one of those things, you know. You don't want to talk to your metalhead friends and go, I write poetry. You know, I don't think that they had an understanding of that.
Sure.
And same thing with like some of the punks. You know, you don't want to sit there and go, I write poetry. They wouldn't understand that. And then, you know, watch Russell Simmons' Def Poetry late night one night. Got into that, found a local like coffee shop one day. I didn't tell any of my friends I did this. This was something I did completely on my own. I would just go over there once, maybe twice a month, and just read something off to a crowd, just to kind of get a little bit of a release,
Yeah.
and then go home. No one ever knew about it. Like, any of my friends never knew I did it.
That's crazy to me. Because I mean, I didn't grow up in a small town per se, but it was fairly small and mostly secluded from most things. Like, everybody knew everybody, and everybody knew what everybody was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so there would have been no way. I mean, I guess if I left town to go do something like that, but it would have come back. It's crazy to me to think that you were able to keep something so personal to yourself without somebody finding out about it.
You can do that. Anybody can do it anywhere. Just drive out of town sometimes.
Yeah.
And then
No,
go.
I believe it. But it's not something that would have ever crossed my mind. I also don't write poetry, so it wouldn't have been, something like that. And at that point in my life, I wouldn't have been writing music either. So it was.
How'd you even get into writing music, or even picking up a guitar?
So music was always kind of part of my life. I mean, my mom always had a guitar. Well, for a long time she had a guitar. Her sister played guitar. Her brother, my Uncle Bill, has been playing music for as long as I can remember. And not just guitar. I mean, everything it seems like that dude can play. And he's one of those people that can play by ear. So he hears something and he can turn around to a piano and go, "Oh, well, this is how you fucking play it."
I'm
Yeah,
jealous of those
dude.
guys, dude.
And it's kind of frustrating in a sense as an artist because I can't do that. There's no way.
There are
you know?
certain songs I've been able to pick up over the years.
The only song that I've ever done that with, and you will be proud of this, Lion King, What's the oh shit, what is it?
Hakuna Matata?
Not Hakuna Matata. No, the one where he's holding him up and what's like the main
The Circle
line?
of Life
yeah,
song
yeah, yeah.
thing
I think
or whatever?
Yeah, I think that's it. It's been a long time. That was the only song I ever was. I had a guitar and I went, oh shit, okay, here it is, and I found it. Yeah.
So you started off learning Lion King, huh?
No. That was quite a few years after I'd started playing guitar.
I've heard you like jam out metal riffs and everything else, and just to know that spawned from the beginning of Lion King is really throwing me off right now, Bear.
So for me,
Hakuna Matata, by the way.
hey man, meets no words. So for me, the thing that got me into playing guitar was actually Scott. I never picked up a guitar before I met that guy.
How old were you?
It's my sophomore year, so it's probably 13 or 14.
But what were you into before that? Music-wise?
Music-wise, I listened to a lot of music.
Like, what was your main music?
And
What was the genre you were
God, I
really...
was all over the place. All over the place. Yeah, I mean, I listened to rap. I listened to alternative. I listened to rock.
You see, I was the same way. I was all over the place, but there was only particular kind of things. Like I said, I had that metal phase because of my friends. And then
Right.
when I discovered punk, it was like, it was over with. For me.
So for me, it was like leading up to basically to meeting Scott. Like that dude opened my eyes for music and writing and playing and whole other genres that I'd never even thought about or knew about, for that matter. Leading up to that, though, there was a lot of old school bands. I think like the first album I ever bought was AC/DC Thunderstruck.
It's a good album, though.
God, it's great. Yeah, no, it's a great album. I think the first CD that I was ever given was a Pat Benatar Blondie mix CD. So like half of it was Pat Benatar and half of it was Blondie. Greatest hits from both of them.
That's not a bad... That sounds like an interesting
It
combo.
was good. It was a good combo. I mean, two of the big female artists from the 80s, right?
Yeah.
And had a lot of influence on a lot of different other artists. Oh, Sugar Ray, when they came out with that first album, dude, I used to jam the shit out of that album.
Okay, so you're talking about the first album with Mean Machine on it.
Yeah.
Don't you dare mess with
Yeah.
Mean Machine.
No, it may not have been that one. It was the one with Cash on it.
Okay, I know which one you're talking about.
So maybe that was their second. I don't know. It was the first album I bought from them, though.
I couldn't picture you listening to Sugar Ray.
Papa Roach.
Oh, you just broke me a little bit there.
God. It breaks me even saying it.
Cut my life into...
Dude, yeah. I used to call my buddy.
Oh, time out.
But-
I was a Korn fan at one point, and I liked Limp Bizkit, so
All
I
right,
can't
fair
say...
enough.
There we go.
I had that.
That whole Family Values
Nookie.
tour.
Yeah, the Nookie album. I had that one. Actually, Papa Roach. So, a buddy of mine, and I'm going to date us here a little bit. Pagers. anytime that Cut My Life song came on the radio, I would call his pager and leave a voicemail on his pager of that song playing on the radio.
Okay, so you did a different kind of pager. My pager was like,
This was right
like left the
when-
number.
Right.
Okay,
this was
so-
right when you could start to do voicemails for pagers.
See, mine was completely just all numbers. It's like, you'd see my dad's number show up, and it's like, oh, God, I'm in trouble already.
Yep. I need to find a payphone.
Or it's a friend typing out boobless.
Yes. Yes, or 911 or whatever people used to type out.
Yeah,
right?
I don't know.
So this was right when pagers were kind of becoming a little more advanced and you could leave a voicemail.
It was right before that era of like cell phone, like the first few cell phones.
Well, I mean, they already had cell phones at that
Well,
point.
yeah, the
but
Zach
it-
Morris
before-
cell phone.
Yeah, exactly, man.
The
fucking
brick.
Huge antenna on it. Looked like a CB radio. So moving on from that, though, it was actually Scott that kind of broke me into the metal scene and
So what was Scott into at that time?
Tool. 100%
Okay,
all the
okay.
way.
I can totally see
but
that.
Tool, yeah.
So was he playing Tool?
He was, yeah. And because when I met him, so it was our sophomore year. I actually met him because of skateboarding, and he started hanging out with us, and we all skated together.
So you and I both started like actually getting into music and like wanting to perform music in a way.
Because of
Skaters.
skateboarding. Yeah. Yeah.
We love you, skater punks.
So, we met and we all hung out and skated and smoked a lot of weed. And our outlet at that point was we'd get really high and listen to Tool.
I can see
Go
that.
figure, right?
There's a few Tool songs that I liked, but I just couldn't get into them.
Well, we'll get you there.
No.
We'll get you there one day.
Whatever.
So, I remember one day Scott came over and I had my mom's acoustic guitar sitting in my room, and I knew that Scott played. And
Did you ever pick it up before? Like, did your mom and you used to play? Did she ever try to
No.
teach you to play?
No, and I for the longest time I didn't even know why she had a guitar because she never played it. She played piano at Christmas, and that was really
That's
it.
weird.
Yeah, and I remember going and finding the guitar and just running your finger across the strings because it sounds cool because it's a fucking guitar. But I never thought about actually picking it up and learning to play. I loved music and I liked the sound, but I never put the two together.
First thing I did when I picked up my guitar, like my electric after I got it, my pick, scratched it with
You
full
fucking pig scrape.
pick scrape with full distortion. That was the first thing I did when I brought that thing home.
That's fair. That's pretty punk thing to do. So I knew Scott played guitar, and after being over to his place one day, I went home and I knew my mom had that acoustic, and I thought, well, shit, he plays guitar, and I could probably do this, So I started looking up tabs. I never learned how to read sheet music. I never learned music theory or what chord is what and what note.
So for
is
me,
what
during
note,
my
like,
orchestra class that I talked about,
you would have to learn.
that's
to read
when
sheet
I
music.
did learn to read.
Right.
And then even in my guitar class in high school, I was learning to read a little bit. But, once you pick up that guitar, you just start...
It's a whole different ballpark.
Because you have like that one guy that's in the back of the class playing something. It's like, oh, show me how to play that. I don't even know what notes you're playing.
And it doesn't matter.
And the teacher's back there going, guys, I can tell you all those notes.
Right.
I can... Never
Right,
mind.
And for me, in my head, like, I don't care what those notes are. Does it sound good?
Yeah.
Do I like the way that it sounds? And that's kind of really all that matters to me. Even to this day, I mean, granted, I know what certain chords are,
Yeah.
but for the most part, I mean, I still can't read sheet music.
We still don't know all the chords because we call a few of them weird ones.
That weird C thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go with
It's like a
that.
weird C at 9. I don't even know.
I went home and I grabbed my mom's acoustic and
How badly out of tune was that
oh
thing?
god, it was horrible. It was horrible. And I couldn't do anything about it because it was solely an acoustic. It didn't.
Did it have steel strings or was it nylon strings?
No, it
or-
was steel strings.
Okay.
So once I went out and bought a neck tuner,
Mhm.
I tuned it up, and I picked up tabs, and I started learning. God, what was the first song that I learned? I want to, and I think it's because this is the first song that Scott played. Blink-182, Adam Song. I think that might be the first song that I ever learned.
So
on
you
guitar.
guys, though metalheads that you were, you learned a pop punk band song.
Yes. Yeah. Just gloat in your fucking glory right now. Yes, we learned a punk song.
Well, no.
Okay,
It was
pop
a-
punk.
Pop punk.
Yeah,
There's a
okay.
difference. There's a big difference.
So I think that's the first song I learned, and then everything after that pretty much was Tool. I started learning just every Tool song that I could.
Name your top 5 bands around that era that you listened to. So I mean, we're gonna chalk one up to Tool. Okay. So
Okay, definitely Tool.
So we're gonna give you 4 more. Give me 4 more
From that time period.
from that time period.
So we're talking my sophomore year in high
when you're
school.
picking up that guitar from the first time, man. Come on.
Okay, all right. So it would have been Tool, Blink-182. I already said Sugar Ray. I already said Papa Roach.
Oh my god.
Yeah. God, what was one of the other big ones that I used to listen to at that point? I'm trying to think of like albums that I went out and bought. Brian Setzer.
Oh,
That was one of the other
Alright,
big ones that I
so-
spun.
my leap or my progression from punk rock music into country. Okay, so listen to this. Listen to this.
Okay.
So you go punk music, and then when I was listening to punk later on in life, I started listening to psychobilly.
Okay.
So it's like a really rough, gritty. Reverend Horton Heat. That would be like a good band that everybody knows, especially here in Texas. Psychobilly band.
Okay.
But that also led me into listening to old rockabilly. But the Stray Cats, Brian Setzer, he had the Stray Cats, and he did rockabilly in the 80s.
Yeah.
And then he came out with like the whole big orchestra, like the big
Yeah.
jive orchestras, because
Yeah.
that dude can wail on the guitar.
Yeah, dude. He can, and he's got a fucking voice.
That was
man.
my progression, because I ended up getting into. So I listened to like a lot of psychobilly, like Tiger Army, the Horror Pops, Creep Show, Necromantics. Like there's like a bunch of psychobilly bands I listened to, but that led me into like listening to like old school rockabilly.
Okay.
And I had a small portion where I was doing swing dancing for a while. And then when you get into like
wait, but back the fuck up. You did swing dancing?
I've also done ballroom dancing.
What?
Freshman year of high school, there was too many guys there wasn't enough guys.
Did you have to do ballroom dancing with another guy?
Just listen to this.
You did, didn't you?
No. Let me explain this. So they had a ballroom dancing class. Only girls signed up for it. So they went over to our PE class, and they were like, any of you guys want to ditch this class and be in the ballroom dancing class? And I was the only one that raised my hand. And everybody else, all the other guys in that PE class were making fun of me and everything else like that. So while they were walking back from the gym, because like where they walked back from the gym, passed by the dance area that we were in, I'm the only guy dancing with like 4 or 5 of some of the hottest girls in school. While they are sweating their asses off, looking like just they got beat up. Yeah, I did ballroom dancing, baby.
Oh my god.
All right, but come on. One more band. Give me one more band around that time.
Man, like I said, I was all over the place. I mean,
I'm already disgusted by Papa Roach, so you need to make up for that one.
No, so to give you an idea of how all over the place I was, a couple other names that I could throw out there. Sean Mullins. I got really into that first album that he put out. What's another? Bryan Adams. Bryan Adams, but the Live and Unplugged album. The
Okay, no,
MTV
I know.
Live and Unplugged album. Love that fucking album. God, dude, I mean, there was so many different genres at that point. I'm trying to think of some of the more obscure ones that I had. What was that? Who's the band that does that song "Breakfast at Tiffany's"?
I don't know the name of that band.
And I can't think of the name of it either.
I can't think.
But I had that album also.
You had that album?
I did, yeah. And
Okay.
actually, it was. I think it was called Home.
Man.
That was a really good album. It was a solid album.
So you want to know? So going back to that whole, I listened to metal around my friends, but this is what I listen to by myself kind of situation.
Yeah.
So give me 2 bands that are guilty pleasures that you know that you would get shit for.
Black Eyed Peas.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. God, what's another one? I think that would be my big guilty pleasure.
I bought the Natalie Imbruglia or whatever her name is.
Natalie Imbruglia.
Yeah, I can't even pronounce her last name. But I bought that album. Michelle Branch.
Yeah, I never got into that stuff, man.
Dude, they were hot. That's the only reason I bought their albums. No, some of their music is really good, though.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
But those were my guilty
Keep
pleasures.
digging.
Okay, fine. I owned Madonna's Greatest Hits.
Yeah, but that's kind of a given. You grew up in the 80s. So
I was a teenager through the 90s, sir. Get it right?
I can't honestly, man.
Okay.
I can't think of anything that I would
Another
be
thing that...
ashamed of at this point.
okay, then I'm going to give you one.
Okay.
And this also bleeds me a little bit more into country.
Okay.
Uncle Cracker.
Oh shit! I had his first album.
Yep.
I did. Yeah, I did.
I had
As
that-
soon as he left Kid Rock and recorded that first album, I went out and bought that first album.
Yeah, no, because like it was the
But that one wasn't
the steaks and shrimp song on that album.
yes, but that one wasn't necessarily country. He was still doing that
was
kind of rocky.
That was hip hop. It was hip hop, Southern rock.
Yeah,
But then, I have all his albums. He had more.
Did he?
Yeah, 72 and Sunny. That one started to go a little bit more
that's
country.
a newer one, yeah.
And then, God, I can't remember the names of the other albums, but "Endlessly" is one of my favorite songs by him.
I don't think I know that one.
It's really, you got to check out that song. It's a really good song.
I'll check it out.
I mean, it sounds country, but that was like my progression into country.
And it's kind of funny too because even Kid Rock at this point has gone country.
It's Southern
right?
rock though. I want to say that a lot of it is Southern rock.
He's a lot softer than he used to be, right? Yeah, he's going for a little bit more of that country feel as opposed to straight Southern rock.
Yeah, exactly.
Although "Ball with the Ball" was a fucking badass song.
I've seen
Dude,
him
I
live.
used to crank the shit out of that song.
I saw him live. They had this thing called Edge Fest in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where think of it as like it was a full day or a week. I can't remember if it was a weekend, but it was definitely a full day where they had a bunch of different bands that would play. So they had 2 different stages, bunch of different bands would come out. So there's one year there that Kid Rock played. I think it was like maybe a year or 2 later, 311 headlined it. After I had moved out to Austin, Texas, I was so upset because Bad Religion friggin' played and headlined it. And one of my best friends, Ryan, out in Albuquerque, he didn't even drink beer, and now he's a big beer fan. And he didn't listen to like a whole lot of punk. Like his idea of punk was like Alkaline Trio. Anyways.
Yeah, okay.
But
all right, so go ahead.
But yeah, he texted me from the show while he's listening to Bad Religion. I'm like, you what?
So I'm gonna pull you back for a second.
Okay, pull me back.
Kid Rock,
Yeah.
were you a fan?
Okay, so I like some of the songs that he did when he first came on the scene.
Okay.
And now I'm talking, this is the not when he first came on, like when he was rapping in Detroit with ICP and everything else like that.
No. When he came onto the rock scene.
When he came onto that whole era of like rap metal scene and things like that.
Rap rock.
Rap rock, rap metal. You know what I mean.
There's some big difference between
I know there's a big
between
difference.
rock and metal. So
Okay, I'm sorry.
Rap rock.
You're-
Don't offend me right now.
You've already offended the hell out of me, Papa Roach. Anyways, there's a few songs that I dig and I can get behind, and it's like, oh man, this is a good song to go ride, because I was doing BMX then too. That's another reason why I didn't pick up my guitar for a long time. I was riding BMX like
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah.
Any of those good songs that were really quick, really fast, had that powerhouse behind them. But when he started going more towards that Southern rock country feel, I appreciate those songs a lot more.
All right. So I'm out of beer. So I want to end this on your favorite Kid Rock song.
Blue Jeans and a Rosary.
Okay. That's a good one.
I love that fucking
That's a
song.
good one.
That one hits me.
Okay. I'm going to go a little more old school.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm going to go with Cowboy.
You notice how I'm not saying anything?
Yeah. Yeah. Because it fits. So, just to remind our listeners, you can find us on YouTube. You can also find us on Facebook at Bear Heartcast. If you feel the need to email us, go ahead and email us at bearheartcast@gmail.com. Once again, my name's Bear.
And I am Michael the Wolfman Hart.
And this is
Bear Heart.